The losers bracket teams: Minnesota, LAG, Vegas, and C9. I said this on the last episode, but I will reiterate. So Minnesota plays the loser of LAT and Carolina. We're both expecting it to be Carolina. LAG would play the loser of Miami and Toronto. Vegas plays the loser of Boston Optic, which either one, honestly, Vegas does have a pretty good shot in that respect. And then C9, I said this on the last episode as well. They got the short stick. They play the loser of Vancouver and Atlanta. Neither team I would necessarily want to play against. That's like one of those things where C9 is literally flying in from LA all the way to South Florida, and they might only play one series and then get back on the flight and go home again, which would really suck for them. Obviously we don't do the predictions. We'll do them like the day of. We'll text between ourselves, and we'll keep track of the pick'em. Any of these losers bracket teams you feel have any sort of shot making a run? Usually there's like a good team that is like down there, and you're like, okay, I could see it. They could win a few matches. This seems like kind of the bottom four definitively at the moment, even with some of the Vegas stuff being like, I guess you could throw Optic in there at points and say like Optic might be one of these bottom four teams, especially because Vegas just beat them. But any shot for any of these four teams to get to like top six, top four?
Oh, I don't know about that, but I think in terms of the first round of the losers bracket, I think you hit the nail on the head with how I would describe it. I definitely think Cloud9 got the most unlucky draw in this losers bracket, so I don't expect them to advance beyond that. Unless, like, if Vancouver or FaZe somehow get like 3-0 smoked in their first round match and they just lose full, completely tilted, like that's got to be like Cloud9, what Cloud9 hopes for, and then they catch a team that's like down on themselves or a little frustrated. Like maybe that's Cloud9's path to victory there. If we look at LAG, I think the way Miami and Toronto have been playing recently, either team that drops down there should be able to take care of business against LAG. So not expecting them to do much. Minnesota is interesting, assuming Carolina drops down and plays them. I believe Carolina just beat them in a Game 5 round 11, which has been Minnesota's thing since Kenny joined the roster in these qualifiers. At the same time, that is a little bit of another quote unquote, not necessarily a revenge match, but like the whole thing around Carolina potentially signing Kenny, and then Kenny doesn't go there. He goes to Minnesota instead. So if it is Carolina versus Minnesota, I think that's an interesting matchup. I'd still, I am high on this Minnesota team. So I do think if it's Minnesota versus Carolina, they have a shot to go on a bit of a run after that, but it's still, it'd be tough. I think the team, which I can't believe I'm about to say this, and I wouldn't have said this at the other events. The team I'm looking at in this first round of the loser bracket is Vegas Falcons, and it's really just because of whichever team drops down, it's a rematch for them. If Boston loses to Optic, then we just saw Boston reverse sweep Vegas. So Vegas is going to want to, try and get revenge there. And then if Optic lose and drop down, Vegas is their only win so far is against Optic. And could you imagine Optic losing in the online qualifiers to Vegas and Pred, and then Pred gets to do it again on LAN to Optic and give Optic a top 12 finish? Like, that would be just bonkers scene. So that matchup, whichever team drops down there, that I have that one circled as the one matchup I'm most looking forward to in the losers bracket. At the same time, though, with even if, let's just say, Vegas beats either Boston or Optic, they most likely then have to play Vancouver or FaZe, whoever beats C9, and I don't favor Vegas in either of those matchups. So most likely, I guess, in terms of the first round, I'm really looking forward to whoever Vegas ends up playing. But Minnesota is the team I would have to go for in terms of potentially going on a loser bracket run, just because if Minnesota beats Carolina, then they're most likely playing the loser of Toronto, Miami. And although I think Toronto, Miami is better than Minnesota at this point, I think that's a little bit like closer in terms of potentially causing something to happen. as opposed to like Vegas versus Vancouver or Atlanta, where I just like there's no really I don't see Vegas beating either of those two teams, but Minnesota I could potentially see them causing some damage against Miami or Toronto, depending on the form of the teams in a given day.
Yeah, that's probably how I would look at it as well. Like Vegas is the most likely to actually get out of round one, but I mean, to make a run, I think it's
Yeah.
probably just Minnesota, like you said, just
Yep.
a slightly easier matchup. Like if Toronto drops down, then it's like, oh crap, you guys are gonna have like a really hard time here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think I can pick against FaZe or Vancouver in the losers bracket, even though FaZe did look relatively vulnerable against Vegas in the major three qualifiers. It's just kind of pretty hard, especially on land with how FaZe is played. So yeah, there probably no losers bracket runs going at least from these four teams. Maybe one of the teams that drops down, especially if LAT, for example, loses to Carolina, then it's like, all right, they might actually make a run through this whole thing.